Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Friday, the 19th of March. In Exodus chapter 30, we read a whole lot of regulations given to Moses around the tabernacle and worship. And I was struck by what is called the atonement money. In verse 12, God says, "When you take a census of the Israelites to count them, each one must pay the Lord a ransom for his life at the time he is counted." And in verse 13, "Each one who crosses over to those already counted is to give a half shekel according to the sanctuary's shekel." And then he says, "All who cross over, those 20 years old or more, are to give an offering. The rich are not to give more than a half shekel, and the poor are not to give less when you take the offering to the Lord to atone for your lives." And that really struck me, because our tendency today would be to say, well, the rich must obviously give more, they've got more to give. And the poor, maybe they should be let off and shouldn't give anything because they're poor. The rich will come and give a half shekel, pull it out of his back pocket and wouldn't miss it. The poor person comes and to pay a half shekel probably has to eat less for the rest of the week. And we hardly think that's fair. But as I thought about it, I thought what it is doing is it's establishing a very important point. Because it says, God says, each one must pay the Lord a ransom for his life. Now, if the rich's ransom was more than the poor, the subtext of that is rich are more valuable than poor people. But what God is saying is it doesn't matter what your wealth, where you live, what you've got, you are all worth exactly the same in God's eyes. And if you're going to pay a ransom, the ransom for the rich is exactly the same as the ransom for the poor. And nobody has higher standing or status in God's eyes. And therefore, everybody will pay the same. And so I think for us it's a valuable lesson. We need to remember that every single individual is equally valued in God's eyes. We might have rich and well-educated, or poor and uneducated and simple and complex. Everybody has the same value in God's eyes. And as Christian, as a church, we need to reflect that we treat people with the same value as well. And we also need to remember that this wasn't the only thing that the Bible said about giving. This is a specific ransom for the temple. Later on it speaks about tithing, where you give proportionally to your income. And they're free will offerings that people can give. And as I read this about the poor giving, I'm reminded of Jesus sitting at the temple watching people give, and he sees a widow put in 2 small copper coins with a fraction of a cent, virtually nothing in the big scheme of things. But Jesus says she's given more than all the others because she gave everything she had. It was a real giving of generosity from her point. And Jesus says that counts. Almost as though God looks and sees what we've kept rather than what we've given. So giving isn't just a simple thing in the scripture. There's a whole lot about it. And we give generously because God gives generously. And the more we have, the more we can give. And we need to rejoice in giving. But the point made here is that every single person has the same value. And if you're going to ransom people, their value is the same. And we need to remember that each of us is equally valued in God's sight. And that is an encouragement. The Pope, Mother Teresa, St. Peter would have the same value if we're paying ransom as each one of us. Know that you are valuable, and therefore you are blessed as well.